When I collapsed at work, the doctors called my son. He never came. But my daughter-in-law posted a family photo. Finally, a day without the drama queen. So I made one call and sold something they thought was theirs. Who's dramatic now? If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. The fluorescent lights in the hospital corridor buzzed like angry insects as I scrolled through social media from my gurney. Heart palpitations, the doctor had said. Stress-induced. At 63, apparently my body had decided it was done pretending everything was fine. The notification popped up on my phone just as a nurse checked my IV. Melissa had tagged me in a photo. How thoughtful of my daughter-in-law to remember me during my medical emergency. I tapped the screen, expecting maybe a get well message. Instead, I found a perfectly staged family dinner photo. David, my son, grinning at the head of my old dining table. Melissa, radiant in the chair I used to occupy. 12-year-old Chloe, my granddaughter, laughing at something off camera. They were in my house. Well, technically their house now. Enjoying what looked like an elaborate homemade meal. The caption made my chest tighten worse than any heart palpitation. Finally, a day without the drama queen. Family dinner is so much more peaceful. Blessed. Family, shoe drama-free. 47 likes already. My sister-in-law Nancy had even commented with laugh-crying emojis. I stared at that phone screen for a full minute, letting the reality sink in. While I was lying in an emergency room, alone, they were celebrating my absence. Not worried, not concerned, celebrating. The nurse returned with discharge papers. "Your son is coming to pick you up, right?" I looked at the timestamp on Melissa's post. 20 minutes ago, right around when the hospital would have called David. He knew exactly where I was. He'd chosen the family dinner instead. "Actually," I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded, "I'll call a taxi." As I waited in the hospital lobby, I did something I hadn't done in 3 years. I called my real estate agent. "Barbara, it's Eleanor Hartwell. Remember that house on Maple Street you said would sell in a week? I'm ready to list it." You're probably wondering how I ended up in this mess. 3 years ago, I thought I was being the perfect mother. Turns out, I was actually being the perfect fool. Like most stories about family betrayal, it started with good intentions and ended with me learning exactly what I was worth to the people I'd loved most. It began right after Tom's funeral. My husband of 35 years had left me the house, his life insurance, and enough savings to live comfortably. I was 60, recently widowed, and suddenly very alone in a 4-bedroom house that felt cavernous without his laughter filling the rooms. David had been so attentive during those first weeks. He'd stop by daily, sometimes with Melissa and Chloe, bringing groceries and checking on me. I thought it was grief bringing us closer together. "Mom, you shouldn't be rattling around in this big house all by yourself," he'd said one evening as we sat on the front porch. "It's not healthy." Melissa nodded sympathetically. All those memories everywhere. It must be so hard. I'd appreciated their concern. The house did feel overwhelming some days. "What if," David continued, "we moved in here temporarily, just until you decide what you want to do long-term? Chloe could have the stability of staying in her school district, and you wouldn't be alone." The idea seemed perfect. I'd downsize to a small apartment nearby, let them take care of the house, and still have my family close. "It would just be temporary," Melissa assured me, "until we can save enough for our own place. Maybe a year at most." I should have suspected something when David immediately started talking about property taxes and maintenance costs. How the house was such a financial burden for me on a fixed income. Never mind that Tom's insurance and investments meant I was hardly struggling financially. Within 6 months, they'd moved in completely. I'd rented a 1-bedroom apartment across town, paying monthly rent while they lived mortgage-free in the house Tom and I had spent decades paying off. But here's what I didn't know then. They'd been planning this from the start. While I grieved, they'd been systematically redirecting my mail to their new address to help manage my affairs. Bank statements, credit card offers, investment notices, everything started going to my old house where they could screen what I saw. Just temporarily. Became 2 years. Then 3. Every time I mentioned them moving out, there was a new crisis. David's job was unstable. Melissa was pregnant. False alarm, but they'd already planned for a nursery. Chloe was struggling with middle school transitions. I started to feel like an intruder in my own former home. Visits became awkward. My belongings disappeared into storage or donation piles. They updated the decor, painting over wallpaper Tom and I had chosen together. But the worst part wasn't losing the house. It was becoming invisible in my own family's life. Barbara Henderson answered on the first ring. At 70, she'd been selling houses longer than most real estate agents had been alive, and she didn't waste time with pleasantries. Eleanor, I was wondering when you'd come to your senses about that property. Can you meet me tomorrow morning? I want it listed immediately. How immediately are we talking? Because that house will have offers within days, but we need proper preparation. I thought about Melissa's social media post, probably getting more likes by the minute. How fast can you get the paperwork ready? Barbara laughed, the sound sharp with approval. That's the Eleanor I remember from the PTA fundraising wars. But honey, even with rush processing, we're looking at standard disclosure periods, 30 days minimum for closing, assuming cash buyers. Reality hit me. This wasn't going to be the dramatic same-day eviction I'd fantasized about. But maybe that was better. Better meant more thorough. Fine. But Barbara, I need complete discretion until we're ready to list, and I need to understand my legal position. Smart woman. I'll bring my attorney friend Patricia Morgan. She specializes in family property disputes. The next morning, Barbara arrived at my small apartment with Patricia, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s who radiated competence. Eleanor, Patricia began, spreading documents across my tiny kitchen table. Before we proceed, I need to understand the living arrangement. Was there any formal lease agreement? Any documented rent payments? No, it was just family helping family. Patricia exchanged a look with Barbara. That's both good and bad news. Good, because you retain full ownership rights. Bad, because they might try to claim tenant protections or even adverse possession after 3 years of continuous occupancy. My coffee suddenly tasted bitter. What does that mean? It means we need to be very careful about how we handle the eviction process. And Eleanor, you need to know. They will likely try to fight this legally. Barbara pulled out a thick folder. There's something else we need to discuss. I did some preliminary research on your property. The tax records show several liens were filed and released in the past 18 months. Did you know about those? I stared at her. What kind of liens? Home improvement loans primarily, all properly documented and paid off, but it suggests significant borrowing against the property's equity. The room started spinning. I never authorized any home improvement loans. Patricia leaned forward. Eleanor, when did you last check your credit report? I don't remember. Maybe 2 years ago? We need to pull your credit report immediately. If they've been intercepting your mail, there could be financial activity you're unaware of. As Patricia made calls to credit monitoring services, I sat in my kitchen, realizing how naive I'd been. While I thought I was being a generous mother, they'd been systematically positioning themselves to take everything. Eleanor, Patricia said, hanging up her phone. We need to meet again tomorrow. There are several accounts showing activity at your old address that require immediate investigation. Barbara packed up her papers. Honey, I think selling the house might be the least of your problems. The phone started ringing at 7:23 a.m. David's name flashed on the screen with the persistence of a smoke alarm. I let it go to voicemail while I made my morning coffee. The good stuff I'd bought myself for the first time in months. The kind that didn't require justifying the expense to anyone. The voicemail was everything I expected. Mom, we need to talk. There's some crazy woman calling about listing the house. Obviously, there's been a mistake. Call me back immediately. Obviously, there's been a mistake. As if the very idea of me making a decision without consulting him first was impossible to comprehend. The phone rang again before I'd finished listening to his message. This time it was Melissa. I answered on the 4th ring. Good morning, Melissa. Eleanor, what the hell is going on? Some real estate agent called David saying she's our listing agent now? This has to be some kind of scam. I took a slow sip of my coffee, letting the silence stretch. Actually, Barbara Henderson is my listing agent. She's been in business for 30 years, so I'd hardly call her a scammer. Your listing agent? Melissa's voice climbed an octave. What are you talking about? You don't own the house anymore. We've been living here for 3 years. Living there, yes. Owning it, no. The deed is still in my name, Melissa. It always has been. More silence. But this one had a different quality. I could practically hear the wheels turning in her brain. But But we've been maintaining it. We've put money into improvements. We painted the whole upstairs. With paint I paid for, I reminded her, along with the new washing machine, the roof repair, and every utility bill for the past 3 years. David's voice came through the speaker. Apparently I was on speakerphone now. Mom, this is insane. You can't just sell our home out from under us. Our home. That phrase hit like a physical slap. It stopped being our home when you started celebrating my absence on social media. What are you talking about? Melissa's voice again, but I could hear the guilt underneath the confusion. Finally, a day without the drama queen. Ring any bells? Posted while I was in the emergency room yesterday. By the way, but don't worry, I saw the photo. You all looked very happy to be rid of me. The line went quiet. In the background, I could hear Chloe asking someone to help her find her math homework. When David finally spoke, his voice had lost its indignant edge. Mom, that post wasn't about you. Of course it wasn't. I set down my coffee cup with deliberate precision. Just like all those times you've been too busy to return my calls weren't about me either. Just like forgetting my birthday last month wasn't about me. We didn't forget your birthday. You wished me happy birthday on Facebook, 2 days late, which is about the level of effort I've come to expect. But here's what really bothered me. Patricia's credit report findings from yesterday were far worse than I'd let on. While they'd been playing house with my property, they'd also been playing bank with my identity. David, I said carefully, we need to have a very serious conversation about finances, in person, today. His voice became wary. What kind of conversation? The kind where you explain the $75,000 home equity loan taken out in my name 6 months ago. After hanging up on David and Melissa, I did something I should have done years ago. I started making a list. Not a grocery list or a to-do list, but an accounting. Every dismissed phone call, every canceled dinner plan, every time I'd been made to feel like an inconvenience in their perfectly curated family life. The notebook filled up faster than I expected. February 2024, asked David to help move furniture in my apartment. He said he was busy with work, but posted photos from a weekend ski trip the same day. January 2024, invited to Chloe's school play. Melissa forgot to save me a seat. I stood in the back while strangers sat in empty chairs. December 2023, Christmas morning at their house. I brought gifts for everyone. They gave me a scented candle from the drugstore clearance rack. Still had the markdown sticker on it. But it was the things I found online that really opened my eyes. While going through 3 years of social media posts, something I'd never bothered to do before, I discovered a pattern that made my stomach turn. Melissa's Instagram was like a highlight reel of family happiness. Hundreds of photos of David and Chloe. Family vacations I'd never heard about. Dinner parties I'd never been invited to. Birthday celebrations where I was conspicuously absent. But the comments were what really got to me. Under a photo of them at some restaurant. "Where's David's mom?" asked a family friend. Melissa's response, "Oh, she's not really a social person anymore. Prefers to stay home." Under a Christmas morning photo, "Lovely family. Just the 3 of you?" Melissa again, "David's mother is going through some things. We're giving her space to figure herself out." Going through some things? Figuring myself out? Like I was having some kind of breakdown instead of just being systematically excluded from their lives. But the worst one was under a photo from Chloe's 12th birthday party last month. A party I'd known nothing about until I saw the pictures online. Someone asked, "Did Grandma Eleanor make it?" David had responded this time, "Mom's gotten really demanding lately about attention and involvement. We decided it was better to keep things small and stress-free for Chloe's sake." Demanding. About attention and involvement in my granddaughter's birthday party. I stared at that comment for a full 10 minutes, letting the words rearrange everything I thought I knew about the past 3 years. They hadn't been protecting me from an empty house. They'd been protecting themselves from me. I wasn't the grieving widow who needed space and support. I was the inconvenient obligation they had to manage. Every dismissed invitation I'd blamed on my own neediness. Every awkward family gathering where I felt out of place. That wasn't in my head. They'd been actively working to make me feel unwelcome in my own family. But Patricia's findings from the credit report were still haunting me. The home equity loan was just the beginning. There were credit cards I'd never opened, personal loans I'd never signed for, and purchase patterns that painted a picture of people living far beyond any means I was providing them. My phone buzzed with a text from David. "Mom, can we please talk about this reasonably? We're family. Family doesn't sell houses out from under each other." I typed back, "You're absolutely right."